Welcome to the first episode of the Bucketlist Project, a weekly podcast that talks about stories from my pursuit of nomadic lifestyle around the world, interviews with interesting people who I met in my journey, and a generous dose of thought provoking conversations around travel as a lifestyle choice. If you love to listen on topics revolving around travel, then this will be your perfect companion for the ride to office, or your morning jog, or in general when you're winding down for the day. It is a weekly podcast with new episodes releasing every Friday. So do share and subscribe to our podcast and get your share of travel inspiration weekly. In my many years of scuba diving, there are two people I fondly remember. One was a 10-year-old kid doing his Discover Scuba Diving course with me. A bit over enthusiastic, his big eyes hiding no fear whatsoever, and constantly chirping with never ending list of questions. I asked him out of curiosity, "Why are you doing scuba diving?" He said, "I'm already 10, I have a very big bucket list that I want to knock off, and I want to have a bunch of stories that I can share when I meet new people in college. I want to be interesting." I was like, taken aback by this clarity of his thought. The second person that I met was a 66-year-old on a liveaboard in Maldives. Quite energetic for his age, wise from all his years of being a teacher, and with a sense of contentment in a life well lived. Beneath this wise and calm demeanor, I could sense childlike excitement when he was getting ready for every dive. I asked him, why, you would have dived around the world enough. What keeps you so excited? He looked at me and said, "I want to feel young. I'm very old right now, and I don't know how many years I have left. But before all of this, I want to knock off my bucket list items." And his bucket list mission was to do 100 dives in next 2 years around the globe in the most exotic dive locations. When I take a step back and think about these two different people, they are from a different age group, from different walks of life, with different motivations, yet both of them have a common bucket list goal, that is scuba diving. I asked this question to myself: what drives humans to have a bucket list? Why is it such a big rage right now? And what is my bucket list? I'm Srinath Shankar, your host, a PADI Master Scuba Diving instructor, co-founder of Pick Your Trail, India's fastest growing leisure travel brand, a digital nomad, and a slow travel proponent. Today's topic of podcast is the bucket list lifestyle. And I'm also going to be talking a bit about the Bucket List project, a passion project I have put together as my life mission. It has been 16 years since the movie The Bucket List released and the term became mainstream. The movie is a story of two terminally ill guys on a road trip with a wish list of things to do before they kick the bucket. Though the movie saw moderate success in the box office with mixed reviews, it unknowingly romanticized the first version of YOLO. You only live once. In this age of social media, this YOLO has become such a mainstream thought process that you go anywhere in Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, your timeline is flooded with people doing things that they've never done before. I'm quite surprised that, after the movie, between the movie releasing and today, it's been only 20 years and the concept of bucket list or YOLO has just exploded. Sometimes I wonder, before the movie, was there even a term called as bucket list? And how do people pursue such things before this movie? It has now almost become an integral part of our life so as to shape our aspirations, our thought process, lifestyle, and even our spending patterns. So, how has this shaped me as a person? Let's talk about that. For each person, there are actually, the specific trigger points that fundamentally change their thoughts or fundamentally impact them deeply in their life. For me, there were about three or four of them. First one was when I finished my 12th standard, I wanted to be a fighter pilot. I had given my NDA exams, I had cleared them, but unfortunately, I couldn't clear the medicals. And that too for a very, very small reason that I didn't even know existed before that. Um, However, unfortunate that flying in the sky remained a dream for me. And after that, the next was when Felix Baumgartner took that giant skydiving leap from space. That was a phenomenal achievement and was deeply impactful for me. And sometime in probably in 2015, I think, when the first version of Our Planet released, and when I watched it, I was totally blown away by that. And I told myself that world is so big, there are so many things to see. Why am I tying myself in front of a computer? I wishfully manifested an idea of leaving behind a full time career and pursuing a bucket list which does not have a constraint of time, money, or location. Don't get me wrong, this is not the fire moment that I'm talking about. Rather, a new philosophy which I was introduced to called the bucket list lifestyle, where your life mission is to chase multiple bucket list worthy pursuits and do it full time. When I was getting married very early in 2013, I had seeded the thought in Pratibha, my wife, and both sides of the family that in 10 years I want to move away from a full time career and pursue this. Surprisingly, both the family and Pratibha, they were very supportive of this idea. And even their first reaction was not of shock or not of disbelief. They said that, okay, if you feel confident, if you this is what you want from your life, then go ahead, not an issue at all. But there was a big question to be answered, like what is it that you're going to do and what is going to consume your time? Introspecting further, I asked myself the question, what would my bucket list look like? Initially, I had to think a lot, but thanks to our travel experiences and the trigger points, it started taking shape slowly. I had listed down my first five bucket list items that I wanted to pursue. Number one was scuba diving and seeing the underwater world, which is 75% of our planet. Second was learning to fly a plane. Third was learning skydiving. Fourth was winemaking. And fifth one was to go on an Amazon expedition. I thought to myself, this is a fine bucket list, but how do I add more substance to this so that it does become my life mission? Without that, it felt like an ephemeral one time thing, and how will I even justify leaving a full time career behind for this? So I went back to the board and revisited the list, but with a new thought added to it. How does a life of pro involved in these activities look like? And what is probably their derived purpose from this activity? This thread led me to a new bucket list which was ready. 1. I didn't want to do scuba diving once. I wanted to become a scuba diving instructor, introduce at least 100 students to the magic of underwater world, dive across 5 oceans of the world and champion ocean conservation in some form. Number 2 was to get a private pilot license and circumnavigate the world in 100 days with a single engine plane. Number three was to become a licensed base jumper and jump off a freestanding structure across all continents. Number four was to volunteer in one of the wine capitals of the world as an intern and proudly be able to say that I produced a batch of fine wine that the world appreciates. Number five was just like David Attenborough. I wanted to go on an expedition of the great Amazon and probably see and explore the kind of wildlife that is only seen on TV. Now the list was ready, the name was ready for the project, but what about the resources? Remember, I had mentioned earlier, I wanted to do this without the constraints of time, money, location, and health, of course. Our journey with respect to money started way back in 2015 when both me and Pratibha decided to go debt free, fix asset light, and build our own businesses for non-linear return for our time invested. So, in fact, between me and Pratibha, we further split our responsibilities, wherein she would build a business which would be a cash flow business, and I would build a business which could potentially have non-linear, large-scale impact. So, when we had put together the project, money as a constraint was actively being worked towards. And we felt confident by 23 we would not have that as a constraint. Time and location as a constraint genuinely existed. And just to set context, the timeline was around 2020, right during COVID, when I actively wanted to, put this bucket list project in action. It was also the time when I was going through injury and fitness issues. Pick Your Trail was at the eye of a COVID storm requiring undivided attention. Travel was impossible and the future uncertain. I thought to myself, I would probably need at least about 24 months to find answer to all these open questions before I can put this project in motion. The answers to these questions were nowhere in sight, but I was confident that we will be able to work out something. With this raw confidence, I started working towards it. In fact, I had put together a list of small milestones that I felt would help us remove these as constraints for us in the next 24 months. To start with, it was my health because I was 93 odd kilos. I had a shoulder impingement, Bankart surgery recently operated on. I had ACL, PCL, and MCL deficient in my left knee. Uh, all of these put together were significantly impacting my lifestyle, and I felt there is no way I'll be able to fulfill even 10% of any of these projects if I wasn't physically fit. So the first goal very clearly was to lose at least about 16 to 17 kilos of weight, lose that in terms of fat, and gain significant body muscle mass so that I have an athletic frame and I'm able to withstand the pressures of all these projects that I have upcoming. The second one, obviously, was with respect to Pick Your Trail and how are we going to plan the turnaround for Pick Your Trail. Because as I said, due to COVID, travel had come to an halt and our revenues had come to zero. We were pre-COVID, we were growing significantly and we had grand plans in terms of our upcoming quarters and years, in terms of what we wanted to do. All of that had come to a screeching halt. Now, the primary objective over here was not only to overcome COVID, but also to retain the team and make sure that we are able to go through this very, very difficult frame and of time and get back to our growth rates that we had initially planned for Pick Your Train. And the third one, obviously, was with respect to if I am going to step down from a full-time operational role, I need to find, enough time and a framework to hand over my responsibilities to a team that can take over it. Now I had very clear three goals that I had to achieve within the next 24 months. And that gave me a lot of purpose, a lot of clarity, and a lot of direction. But most importantly, I had to articulate and communicate these goals and the timelines to important stakeholders in my life. That included Pratibha, my family, my co founder Hari, and obviously the investors and subsequently the teams that I was working with. So, in fact, when I told this to Pratibha, the first reaction she had is that I have only 24 months to figure out my own set of challenges then. In fact, she was going through a inflection point in her business where it was growing significantly due to COVID and remote learning taking a huge front seat. She had to find her own ways of not compromising on her dream and vision for the business, and at the same time, travel along with me once we started this bucket list project. So she had her task cut out, and she was quite happy with the timeline that she had in front of her to go completely remote with respect to her business and become a digital nomad without having to compromise on any of her vision. With Hari, surprisingly, he took it really well, and he was very, very supportive. Though we had a lot of tough questions to answer in terms of how will we recover from COVID, when and what milestone is right time for me to make this move, what will be the transition plan, what will be the communication to teams, and what would be my role post the transition. In fact, I would want to give a big shout out to our investors also at this point of time, who were very, very supportive again of this decision of mine. And in fact, they had very encouraging words to say as and when I wanted to pursue this particular project. And fast forward to December 2022, that is 24 months. I was lucky enough to find most answers, if not all, and was finally ready to embark on this project. I had moved into a role within PYT where location and time was not a constraint anymore. Worked significantly on my health where I had a significant body recomposition done and became pain free from all my injuries. I generally don't believe in romanticizing the journey and make it look like it was all hard work, grit, and perseverance. I believe I got to this point thanks to a mix of luck, privilege, timing, and good support system. Finally, for the first time in my life, with these constraints not in front of me, it felt very, very light. And on December 31st, 2022, both me and Pratibha decided to become digital nomads and chase the bucket list project as we took our flight out from India. It is serendipity that biggest decisions in my life were taken on December 31st, starting PYT and now this. As I speak to you, a portion of my first goal is already complete as a PADI Master Scuba Diver instructor. I'm enjoying this newfound passion with 500 plus log dives, 50 plus student certifications, and already having dived in more than 6 countries. I have an exciting calendar of expeditions coming up for the rest of the year, and I feel happy that every year is now going to bring new challenges, fresh perspectives, and no sense of regret. This wraps up the first episode of the Bucket List project. Hope you enjoyed this podcast and are already penning down your bucket list. If not, what are you waiting for? As they say, you only live once, but if you do it right, once is more than enough. If you liked what you listened to, then subscribe to our podcast, which is available both in Spotify and Apple. See you next week, and until then, have a great time.